Hello everyone, welcome back to Debate Lab. This week we'll be discussing about the topic in health, and the motion is this House would remove patents for COVID-19 medicines. Year 2020 indeed came to us in a shock, and we still live in that shock. The virus was first reported in Wuhan, China on December 31st, 2019. Now, this COVID-19 drug, compared to other pandemic diseases such as SARS, AIDS, Ebola, COVID-19 has relatively low death rate, which is around 3 to 4%. However, this death rate is much higher than the seasonal influenza, where the death rate is around 0.1%. This is mainly because we have vaccines for influenza. But one thing for sure, this virus has become a widespread pandemic, and as of May 8th, 2020, close to 4 million people worldwide has been infected, and from there, around 280,000 people lost their lives. Currently, COVID-19 is the second biggest death reason for the people in the United States. For most of people, say around 80%, COVID-19 will come by as a mild disease, very similar to a common cold. However, rest of the 20% who are very young or old or have underlying health issues, they will have severe impact and may lose their lives. Okay, so you might think, well, I'm not a baby or an old person and I don't have any diseases. So it just sounds like a bad cold. Why are nations making such a big deal out of it? Well, firstly, the problem of COVID-19 is that there's no vaccine, so it'll be impossible to prevent. Secondly, there's no cure for this disease. And if you catch the virus, you have to mostly rely on your immune system to get well from the virus. Thirdly, no one is completely safe from this virus. Young and old, and despite any nationality, this virus can impact everyone, including yourself. Also, as this virus is airborne, it's highly contagious. As an example, one person in Korea has infected more than 30 people in the same room in just one day. So let's put this all together. No prevention, no cure, anyone can get it, and is very contagious. This means if there's an outbreak, it will quickly be spread all over, and with so many people rushing to the hospital, it will create a big burden and bottleneck to already strained medical system. Collapse of medical system will also collapse the society and eventually the nation. And this is why COVID-19 is so dangerous and deadly. So to prevent this total collapse of the country, all nations are scrambling to take extreme measures to stop the impact of this virus at the expense of economy. You can see on the left that the financial markets first responded to COVID-19 crisis, where stock markets plunged almost 25% in March. We also saw restaurants, gyms, hairdressers, your favorite parks and facilities are forced to shut down, meaning all people who used to work on these places all of a sudden lost their jobs. It is projected in the United States alone that due to this coronavirus, the unemployment rate will go up to almost 25%, meaning 1 out of 4 people will not have a job. Social impact was also great, where we saw people stockpiling food and other essential items, leaving groceries almost empty. Schools has been closed and many students had to do all their learnings online, or parents had to homeschool their kids while working from home as well. Politically speaking, we saw many countries have strengthened lockdowns, forcing people to stay at home. Some dictatorship nations also abuse this opportunity to limit the freedom of people and increase their power. We also see US and China's relationship at stake, finger pointing each other on who to blame on this pandemic. So now you may be thinking, yes, COVID-19 pandemic is real and almost everything has been impacted. Then where are we in developing the cure. Since this outbreak of pandemic, global pharmaceutical companies were in a rush, almost like a gold rush, to find cure and vaccines for this virus. Because the virus has so many unknown features as well as mutation, finding cure for is very difficult. But as of now, medicines such as Gilead's remdesivir, a drug that used to treat Ebola, has been found as a potential cure for COVID-19. Pfizer, another global pharmaceutical company, has also started human trials on the very first COVID-19 vaccine. But at the same time, what concerns many people is not only the long time it takes to come up with a cure, but the steep price tag of these vaccines and cure. For example, the estimated cost of remdesivir would cost around 5,000 US dollar, which is almost a monthly income of an average US citizen and almost 5 times the global average income. So it is definitely not cheap. And why are these cures so expensive? Well, there are many factors such as ingredients and supply chain, but what really determines the price of medicine is patents. So what is a patent? A patent is a type of intellectual property right that provides protection over an invention. Say you came up with a super yummy brownie recipe. Now you can patent this, and if you're successful doing so, then no one can actually use the same ingredients to make your secret brownie. When a drug is covered under a patent protection, that means only the pharmaceutical company that holds the patent is allowed to manufacture, market the drug, and make money out of it. Given it costs billions of dollars for these companies to come up with these drugs, it's true that they will not give these drugs for free. Patents are especially important to these drug companies because they can guarantee profit from all the time and cost they put in developing this drug. However, it also makes drug prices very expensive, and those who cannot afford these drugs are in the risk of losing lives. So now we know that a drug with patent is really expensive. So how do you make it cheap? Well, so here we introduce the concept of generic drug. Just like when your grandma's secret brownie recipe is published on website, then anyone who has internet can go and download it and start making that secret brownie. When a patent of this drug expires or is lifted, then the ingredients of these drugs are available for other companies to make. So other companies can start making these drugs. These are called generic drugs. They have the same effect and the ingredients the same, but it comes with much cheaper price, almost 80% cheaper, so making these drugs much more affordable to people. So there we go. We saw the whole issue of COVID-19. So should we make these expensive drugs or medicines related to COVID-19 free of patents? Meaning that yes, you can develop it, but you cannot really profit from it. Let's look at the arguments of pro and con team on the motion. If you're in the pro side, then you'll say yes, taking away patents of these COVID-19 medicine is the best way to and best solution for this crisis. Because if you're in the pro team, you would like to value the fairness, equality, as well as it's really the government's responsibility to protect these people from the COVID-19 virus. And best way is to give away medicines for free or no cost. And the first thing to do is remove the patents. The first argument I can think of is that firstly it's very unfair and unjust for pharmaceutical companies to profit off at the expense of people's lives. Think about it. Well, COVID-19 is a pandemic, so everyone will need to find a vaccine or everyone has to buy this medicine. And if you're the pharmaceutical company trying to make money out of this crisis situation, this is very unethical. Secondly, generic COVID-19 drugs can help the poor people as well as people from developing nations who cannot afford these drugs. Think about it. If you're charging 5,000 US dollars and where almost 25% of the population in the world live less than $1 a day, then if you're from poor nations, it's going to be extremely hard for you to get these drugs. That means people in the poor nations will die, and that will also impact the rich nations too. Thirdly, you can say generic COVID-19 drugs can allow mass production and it can increase the quality of drugs. Let's go back to the example of brownie recipe. So if you're the only one making the brownie in the world, then yes, you can make great brownies, but you're not going to have much ideas because you're the only one who can make the brownie. But if everyone starts making the brownies, then maybe they can start adding, let's say, nuts, or they can add different types of chocolate sauce, or maybe they can add Nutella, for example, and that's going to make the brownie recipe even yummier than before. So if everyone starts making the COVID-19 drugs, that means that you can actually increase the quality of the drugs and medicines. Lastly, you can say that if you remove the patents of the COVID-19 drugs, then pharmaceutical companies should spend their money to develop the drugs purely and not keeping the patents for themselves. Now, this concept may be a little bit difficult, but what I'm trying to say here is that in order to have patents, you need a lot of money because you need to hire lawyers and you need to provide a long list of documents. And also maybe you need to spend a lot of money to people to make this patent effective. Now, what a lot of pharmaceutical companies do is they're so focused on having this patent that they spend so much money on lawyers and lobbyists to keep this patents, almost millions and millions or even billions of dollars per year. Now, let's say we don't need to use this money to keep the patents. Then these money can be used to develop new drugs, new innovative drugs. It can also increase the cooperations between the companies. So it will be a very good situation for pharmaceutical companies to come up with an innovative way to create the drugs. Now let's look at some arguments from the con side. So if you're on the con side, you also value fairness. But in this case, the fairness is that you cannot only make the pharmaceutical companies responsible for this COVID-19 crisis. They're not Superman. They're not the Justice League. Why should they be sacrificing in this COVID-19 pandemic? You can also say it's the right of ownership. If you spend so much money on that drug, then you have all the right to profit from it. So your point of view is that removing patent for COVID-19 medicine will not help resolve this crisis. The first argument can be that generic drugs are not as effective as original drugs and often lacks quality controls. Because many of the times, generic drugs are created not by the pharmaceutical companies in the rich nation, but then the pharmaceutical companies by relatively poorer nations. And they might use less ingredients or not as effective ingredients. That means generic drugs may look the same, but they might not be as safe or even effective to the people. You can also say patent encourages the release of new kinds of drugs safely into the market because you have to go through a lot of process to get this idea into a patent. That means that it really encourages the pharmaceutical companies to ensure the quality and the drugs will be very effective on people. Let's say patent is not there anymore. The pharmaceutical company will say, we just created this drug. This is the cure. And they won't really think about the quality of the drug because there's no patent. Also, my third argument is that companies spend billions and billions of dollars to create these drugs, and they have right to make money out of it. Because if you think about all the money that was used to create this drug, including that you have to pay people, all these animal testing, human testing, all these modelings, and then you have to pay the scientists, then this is not free at all. And patent is the only way for pharmaceutical companies to ensure they take back the money that they invested in creating this drug. Lastly, you can say that without patents, companies will feel no incentive to find a new cure for this drug. Think about it. If you cannot make money out of it, what pharmaceutical companies will start making new cure for COVID-19? Removing patents off the COVID-19 medicine will effectively means that no companies will be interested in making the drug. So this is what I think so far. I wonder how you think. Your arguments may be similar or different as mine. It doesn't matter. But what's more important is that I want you to think about this debate, think about the motion, read the research, and come prepared. Until then, thank you for listening to my lecture. I'll see you in the debate. Bye-bye.